would hear people up the stand saying, "Oh, LeBeau, man, he's smart. Look where he put Troy on that play to pick that off." Well, hell, I had Troy on the end who was catching the ball, who lined up in the backfield to max protect, and he just shot over there and picked off a slant to Mason. That was another time that my players made me look pretty smart.
What's up, everybody? Cam Heyward here, and this is Not Just Football. Hayden, how you feeling today?
Good, man. Really good. A good Memorial Day weekend. Got some time off. How about you? What'd you do this weekend?
Nothing. And I love it that way, especially when you're prepared for such a great guest we have.
I know. I'm very excited about this. What did it mean for you to interview Dick LeBeau? What did it mean?
Having Coach LeBeau on, I knew it was a big ask, but I've just had the most respect. I know I wouldn't be a Steeler without having a coach like that. And then him just passing on knowledge, jokes, a good time. Like, I felt very, validated and vindicated just having him on. Like, nothing about me, but just having that guy speak up and know he's the reason why I've had such a long career. Have the utmost respect with. I feel like when you talk about DCs, there's no one that really comes to mind but Dick LeBeau when you talk about having success as a player, as a coach, and being able to relate to players. It means a lot to me to have him on.
Yeah, obviously, I knew it because I know his history and stuff, but it's crazy when you actually think about just how long he's been in or a part of the NFL. Played in the 60s, coached in the 70s or 80s or 90s, all the way through up. Just crazy amount of knowledge. And just when you hear him calling back to certain names and stuff from the 90s or the 2000s, I mean, he was even talking about game planning against your dad. Yeah. So it's crazy to think how much he's seen. And also, man, I always knew you guys probably had a good relationship, but it was really cool as somebody kind of on the outside to see it. You could tell he really cares about you and all of his players. Because I was trying to get him to answer questions give me your all-time defense. And he basically told me he can't do it. Stop asking, right? So it's it was cool to see him kind of open up and tell you how much he appreciated you too.
Yeah, cliff notes on just the episode alone. There were a couple of times I teared up, just because of the way he spoke. He talked about early on, being a player, being a coach, having Troy Polamalu as a player, and coaching him up, talked about, how good that defense was in the 2000s with the Steelers. He even talked about his acting days. So it's a great listen. I hope everybody has fun listening to it. Make sure you like and subscribe and, have a good listen.
Yeah, super cool. Also went into Ohio State. One thing that I want to ask you, you posted about the message. You posted that this interview was coming on our Not Just Football page.
Yes.
What did you write in ChatGPT for that thing to give you that? That was it was so eloquently written that I know you used ChatGPT. Okay.
Wow.
What
just
did you type in?
on my.
What did you type in? Let me guess. Write a social media post for Cam Heyward for his mentor and legend of the game, Dick LeBeau, and creator of the zone defense. I read that and I was like, man, that is the most ChatGPT thing I've ever read.
Wow, you're a hater.
Was it?
No.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Well, it's deserving of a good guy.
It crushed. It crushed. It did.
We're going to use ChatGPT more from here on out, but they make better responses. So how about that?
Listen, it takes away any of the pressure. You don't listen, they do everything for you with that. So I don't blame you. But I read that and I'm like, man, I read that it starts out mentor, coach, legend. I'm like, this is not how Cam talks, man. Let me read this to you exactly. This is not how you talk. Coach, mentor, legend, and the best actor in the NFL. The godfather of the zone blitz, Dick LeBeau, joins Cam Heyward for laughs.
We could have said you came up with it.
Anywhere else.
Now you're just blowing my spot. Thanks, Hayden.
That is the most ChatGPT thing ever. And I love it, man.
We're going to bring ChatGPT on just to...
We should, man.
And have a good listen to the episode. Yeah. There's nothing AI about the episode. Great time, great stories. Let us know what you think. Coach, I'm so excited for you to be here. You're a Hall of Fame player, coach, and even a Hall of Fame person. So I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Well, thank you, and it's my honor to be talking to you, pal. So proud of you and what you've accomplished with your career. And I'm proud to say that I discovered you at Ohio State and predicted that you would be a great NFL player. And anybody that makes me right, I always have a special spot in my heart for them.
Well, thank you, Coach. Man, you don't have to butter me up like that. Shoot, I feel honored to even be coached by you.
Well, we took you in the first round, and first round choices people like to be pretty careful with. I never felt any more secure in recommending a player than you. I don't know if you remember, but I went to your workout at Ohio State, and quite a few of your family members were there, Ken.
Yeah.
And I got to spend some time with them. And your mom just made such an impression on me. And I said, this man has been brought up correctly, and he's going to be a great asset and have a long and strong career in the National Football League. And picking guys in that early rounds, because you don't get an X-ray machine that tells you what's inside of them. I had a little insight to what was inside of you, and I felt very, very secure with that draft pick. And like I say, I really love people that make me right.
Coach, I remember, I think it was at the Combine, I had my big meeting, and I think just me and you talked for like a good 30 minutes in that meeting, and I was blown away because I felt like it was different from any other meeting I had, and we talked ball, we talked family. It was just, I was itching after the opportunity to be coached by you.
Well, but it's so often in the draft process with 32 teams picking, you can't help but get guys that you meet and watch play and hope that you would be lucky enough to actually then get them drafted for your team. And so when it works out in this case like it did with us, with you, it's a real special treat. And I knew you would be great to coach, and I'm just sorry I didn't get to coach you a little bit longer. But with the guys that was in that room with you when your first couple of years there, I knew that you would be a great positive leader for your team, and you have done that. And the awards that you have won for your involvement with the community and everything, Cam, I'm so proud of you, man.
Man, I appreciate that, Coach. All right, Coach, I'm gonna kick things off. I'm gonna make you choose between your sons. Who's your favorite player you got a chance to coach, and why?
Being a parent, you won't have any trouble identifying that I'm never going to ever name one guy. And see, that 2008 defense set so many records. I would never distinguish between any of those guys. It was just a blessing. I was lucky to get that core of players. But over the years, the Steeler defense, and you can go back to the 70s even when they first started winning championships, the defense has been handed down from literally generation to generation. That's why making a draft choice like yourself, and then now you're, as I often have told this story to many people because I played 14 years myself, and you get in the huddle and you look around, early in your career, and you say, "Oh hell, I'm the youngest guy in this huddle. I got all kind of years left in front of me." And then you look a little bit later and you say, "Ooh, I'm about middle class here in the age column here." Then pretty soon, before you know it, you say, "Ooh, I'm the oldest guy in this." So you get that feeling of handing down from generation to generation, and I think that's a huge process of the Steeler defense and why they have continued to be a pretty strong group. And people like yourself getting in the saddle and harnessing it up and passing the torch on down. And, of course, you've got several more years before you have to worry about that. But that's coming in your career, too.
It's coming. Coach, what was so special about those 2000s defense?
Well, I think really, as you know, from being in the room with me. I didn't make a team's a family and the family's a team just a phrase, a catchword, slogan. We lived it, and we preached collectively. The guys playing on the field and the coaches in the room. We preached that it didn't matter who made the play. It didn't matter who got the credit for the interception. It didn't matter who got the sack. It was the 11 guys working together that formed that team that enabled some individual to stand out in any particular play. And that became really our way of life in that whole, as they say, complex in the facility. Guys, they wouldn't let people throw trash on the floor. They get that in the wastebasket where it belongs. But it was just a process of being together, and we all shared in our success. And literally, they didn't care who got the sack. And I think you can see it in the way you guys play. I mean, it's not something. I'm not talking about some big abstract thing. You can verify this on film today. And so to answer your question, it was the character of the individuals, not the coaches. It's the guys that were out there on the field, and that they would listen and trust their coaches, that this was the way to have a successful team. Because in team sports, I don't know of any that's any more connected and complicated than football, because you got 11 guys out there at all times, and all 11 got to be focused on the same purpose. And those guys did it. Well, you know it. You're living it. Yeah. So that's my answer to that. It's kind of standard, but it's true.
Coach, you talk about the unselflessness. I mean, the selflessness, and playing for your teammate. One guy in particular, Troy Polamalu. You got any funny stories about him?
Oh, Troy, I love Troy. Troy will tell you, if he were on this Comcast right now, a huge part of his success was Ryan Clark. And again, it was our team concept. And in order for Troy to have the freedom to do some of the things that we let him do, we had to have a heck of a safety plan beside him, and they could communicate one to the other. I don't know whether they did it telepathically or not, because I watched and listened. I could never see anything move in their mouth or anything, but Troy would just kind of go like this, and Ryan would go like this, and away Troy would go and sack the quarterback. And in case that every now and then he'd go the wrong way, Ryan would always be right where Troy was supposed to be and protect us. They were tremendous, the two of them, and it was a joy to see the way they prepared for games. And they would sit down in that meeting and take a note of everything that was said, and then when they'd come back in from the practice field, they'd get their, the standard work that they had to get done around the facility. Then they'd go watch some more film, and then they would be talking about the guys that they were trying to defend that week. And that was so important, I think, to Troy's success. And now the rest of it was having an athlete with the instincts and the physical capability that Troy had. That he could take what those guys looked at on video, they could take out on the field on Sunday, and as soon as they saw it in action, boom. It's one thing to say, oh, I see what they're doing, but it's another thing to do something about it, and they could do it. And with that group, there wasn't a weak spot on the field. We had Casey Hampton was as good a nose as ever played.
Yep.
And I'm probably going to tell you something you don't know, Cam. There's only 3 defensive linemen in a 3-4 defense. So they got to be tough as hell. I'm telling you right now, because that's all you got.
Yes, sir.
Well, Casey was the anchor in the middle, and then our 2 ends, and you were in the room with them for several years, Brett Kiesel and Aaron Smith. And it was rare that they were ever blocked on a play, ever. And if they were, they'd usually go back around, chase it down, and still make the tackle on the damn thing. So that was our defensive line, and we had a great I don't like to call them. I call them non-starters because the 11 guys that started the starts, but our backup core on that group of guys, often you couldn't tell that the number one guy wasn't even in the game because the other guy was playing as good or better. And we, like I say, we were blessed. But those three guys, you talk about the anchor of a defense, they had it. Now the bookends on that was James Harrison and Lamar Woodley. They were maybe not down in and down out, do some of the things I've seen TJ do. Let's see, we took you in 2011. I think we took you in the first round, and I think TJ came in at about 17. So I really missed him, and I got to show you where your locker was at least. You can't take much credit for you, pal. Except that I was smart enough to know that you would be a hell of an NFL player. But those five guys were the front, and you couldn't do anything with them, pass or run. And then we had a great secondary with Ike Taylor and Townsend, and McFadden played a lot. We played a lot of five DBs, and then I've already talked a little bit about Ryan and Troy. So that was, no weak spots. There was nowhere, they talk about game plans and everything like that. The opposing coaches, when they were looking on Tuesday night at what they're going to do against the Steelers on Sunday, they weren't looking at this, we can get this guy, we can get that guy. There was nobody that they could get. So all I had to do, to be totally honest with you, I just give them a defense and get the hell out of their way, Cam.
Coach, I'm curious. You obviously played in the 60s and the 70s, coached in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. The NFL has tried to legislate the violence or the physicality out of the game. How did you evolve your coaching on defense for that?
Well, my whole goal as a coach was, having played so long, with 4 years in college and 14 in the pros, I just wanted I wanted to coach the way that I wanted to be treated when I was a player. And when you play that long, you get some good examples and you get some bad examples. And I knew I wanted to coach, so I was watching people constantly, and I would always, at the end of the day, I'd say, I don't think I would have handled it that way, or I think, man, he did a good job with that. But that was just benefited me from all the years. I knew I was going to be a coach, but I haven't been a player and failed the way players fail, because I don't care who you are. In a game of 75 snaps, you're not going to grade out A+ on 75 snaps. You're going to have errors. And once you understand that as a coach, I would always say we'll strive for perfection, but it's unattainable. But if we keep striving for perfection, we're going to get damn good. And that was my coaching philosophy. So those guys, once they could see that collectively we were getting things done, and they had to be the engine for the whole project. They drove the thing, and together we got a couple of punters on the field every now and then. We didn't get a punter the day off, man.
Coach, I want to ask you this though. You had 63 picks in a game where they weren't throwing the ball. How the hell did you do that?
Well, one thing is I played 14 years. Most corners don't last that long. I was telling how I would come around, talk to you guys while you were stretching, getting ready to go to practice, and I'd always be jazzing the thing up a little bit, trying to get a good, honest day's work out of you, Heyward, but never had to jazz too much. But I would always be poking a little fun at you guys.
You did.
And one day a rookie, it was a great line. He said, "Coach, come here a minute." It was during stretch, and I was running off a little bit at him. He said, "Let me ask you something, Coach." He said, with all those interceptions, he said, "What did they do? Just throw at you every down?" I said, "No. In fact, they shielded me and avoided me like the plague." Most of the answer there is longevity, Kim, and the fact that I had the advantage of playing with some really, really good defenses. My whole career was spent with one team, that being the Detroit Lions, and I would always add to conversations, when you can really play, you don't have to go somewhere else. They won't let you go. They keep you where you are. But the game has changed a lot as the movement of the players has changed a lot now. But just mostly playing. But see, in our division, listen to this here. When I came up in 1959, God almighty, I was no.
You're getting young, baby.
There were 12 teams in the league, pal. 12. 6 in the East and 6 in the West. You were playing against your guys in your division twice a year, and so you were seeing the same 6 quarterbacks twice a year. And if you played 14 years, you do the math how many times I played against these guys, and I had a pretty good idea of what they were thinking, what they were going to do. So I could shortcut a little bit and cut across to the side. Most of the defensive back is angles anyhow.
Coach, how many times did somebody not realize how good of a player you were? Player or fan?
Oh, they didn't get much of a chance for that. I was always talking about myself, how good I was. Playing corner, you learn to knock out all the noise around you and focus only on what you have to do that snap. You're playing against the most skillful receivers in the world. And that's what the NFL is. They can go anywhere in any country, in any college, any place, and get any player they want, and you got to cover them. And so if you're not paying a hell of a lot of attention to what he's doing, you're not going to do very well. So I didn't have time to listen to the noise. I knew that if I got beat, I was going to get booed, and I knew if I got an interception, I was going to get cheered. So to hell with it. Let's go play the next snap, see what we can get done.
Coach, we talk so much about your NFL career. We got to bring up you being a Buckeye. How was it like being coached by Woody Hayes?
Well, my stock answer for that, Cam, is always the saying goes, and I think it's true. If it doesn't kill you, it's good for you. Well, he didn't kill me, man. I'm still alive, so it was good. Woody gets a lot of, I would call, bad press. He was totally unique, but he was from a different era too. And if the great things that he did for his ex-players, and for instance, Woody never took a raise. He didn't take a raise. And then, the kind of money the coaches are making now, I think he probably would have taken a small raise. But he was so principled, and I could tell you literally just from my exposure to Woody, 50 stories of the good things that he did for his players later on in their lives, and that they were still all part of his family. But you never hear one single story about it. You hear everything he did which was wrong, and Woody was pretty vulnerable for some stories about things he did that was wrong. But the era was so different, and people ran the ball off tackle. And we only flanked out. We had one play from flank, and I was the guy that flanked out because I was probably the only guy on the team that could catch a pass. We never threw the ball. We just pounded and pounded. And in the fourth quarter, they finally, the dam broke, you know. we didn't lose very many, but we didn't score a whole lot of points. And I think our opponents averaged about 7.2 points a game against us. We had the ball all the time.
Wow.
And you can check it, but our 57 team, we won the Big Ten, we won the Rose Bowl, and we won the national championship. And you look at the scores, nobody got any double figures on us. But that was all. Woody had a system, and he figured it out, and he drafted or recruited the types of players that could make it. It's a whole different era because we were playing what they called then limited substitution. They didn't want to compete with the NFL, who was, offense, defense, special teams. And you played every play. We had my senior year, I think we had 8 guys that averaged 57 minutes a game.
Oh,
so
goodness.
We didn't have 320-pound players because if you're playing in September and it's 95 degrees down there and you're playing football for 3.5 hours, you weren't weighing 300 pounds, man. So it was a different game, and Woody's system was perfect for that.
Coach, I want to go back. You've mentioned it a few times. 2011. Give us your first impression of Cam. Now, I know you mentioned his mom, who was a great woman. What was your first impression of him when you were scouting him to be a Pittsburgh Steeler?
Well, the first thing I did was look at all of his games, his early games, his middle games, and his senior citizen games, and I said, this guy's a player. And but to play that's so, I was jumping on the table for him when I came back from my recruiting visit. Cam helped me on who were you playing when you dropped back in the fire zone to intercept that ball?
Miami.
Yeah, it was a very formidable opponent, and it was an important play in the game. But here I got to see him doing a lot of the stuff that I was going to ask him to do, get down to 3-point stance, and then yet end up back, not right rushing the passer, but getting back in space a little bit. And when I saw that play, it was a very remarkable and crucial play in the game. I said, ooh, there's my guy. There's my guy. I think that Cam will tell you that his family upbringing was very, very positive with wonderful people. I also had the unpleasant task of trying to defend his father as a coach in the well, that would have been in the 90s, in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, man, you talk about a football player that didn't know that you had to go down every snap. When he had that ball, he didn't realize that he was going to probably get tackled at some point in time because he was running like he was never going down ever. And I knew that part of it. I knew that the genes were there for football. And then I saw his whole family kind of interacting at his workout day. And I said, this guy can't miss.
Man. Coach, you're way too nice to me. You are way too nice to me. What's your most memorable game you coached as a Steeler?
Cam, I focused so much on each snap. I didn't separate games per se. And I would, a lot of times, I wouldn't forget any of the plays, but you wouldn't really know the sequence. And I would coach off of what I was seeing on the sideline. Like, I don't care who you are, you're a human being. Some days you got a little more zip than you got on other days. And most guys know it, and if you're a competitive athlete, you work out ways to get yourself going. But as a coach, I thought, well, I got to help these guys today with my calls because their feet's stuck in molasses right now. And I see plays that we make on a daily basis, not getting made, then I'm going to start blitzing your butt every down and get you moving. And all I did was coach each particular snap like I'd ask you guys to play, one snap at a time. And that's all you can influence. You can't do anything about the play that happened 2 quarters ago. You can't do anything about the run that the guy just made for 50 yards. All that you can affect is this play that's in front of you right now and help us win this football game. Well, how are you going to do that? Get us off this field and get the ball in Ben's hands back to the quarterback. And so that was our sole focus. And if I was going to ask them to do it, that's what I was going to do. And so the one thing that I made sure of, Cam, and I think every coach should do, when we didn't play well, as up to our standards, we always played well. But when we didn't play up to our standards, I didn't go in there in that Monday meeting and say, you guys did, it was us. And I knew I wasn't perfect, again, from my 14 years of being out there on the field myself. I knew sometimes you try as hard as you can try every snap if you're a competitor. But some of the plays, you don't get it done. You just don't get it done. You know, you're not playing against an empty chair over there on the other side either. They got pretty good athletes too. And I would take my share of the blame with the players. And again, like I said, I was always examining the people coaching me pretty hard all through my whole career. A lot of coaches don't do that, you know. It's I won and you guys lost. but if you're going to preach a family environment, you got to actually live it. And I worked one play at a time. And I saw that if a particular play or style of play was hurting us that day, I was going to stop it. And so I carried enough defense. You can probably remember you were probably somewhat overwhelmed when you saw our playbook when you first came in, because I carried all that defense because I didn't want to get in the game and have us not play effectively and then be laying in bed on Sunday night, which you do. You still do it.
Yep.
After that ball game, you go over every play 100 times. And the ones that you did good, you just kind of say and nod and go on. But the ones you did bad, you say, well, why didn't I do this? What can I do to keep that from happening? I, as a coach, didn't want to get in that situation because you ain't going to sleep the night after the loss anyhow. And I just wanted to make sure that I had plenty of stuff to try. I wasn't going to sit there and let you just run off tackle and club us to death.
Yep.
And actually, your dad was part of that philosophy because there was a couple of games against him that we couldn't get him down. And I said, I don't care if I got to put 5 on him. I'm going to get him down the next time we play him. But that was part of that. To answer the question about any particular game, it was more, I can remember the individual plays that players made, like Troy's interception in the playoff game against Baltimore. We had led that game and had complete control of the game the whole first half. And in the second half, you know how games go, there's an ebb and flow, and it flipped. And Baltimore was controlling the game, and they had just driven the ball down and scored. And we went 3 and out, and there was only about 5 minutes left in the game. And it was a plain and simple, this is it, man. We're going to have to get their butt stopped here, or we ain't going to the Super Bowl, which was going to be the next game after that one there. And that was the game that Troy made that pick and ran 55 yards all over the field and won the game for him. And I would hear people up in the stands saying, "Oh, LeBeau, man, he's smart. Look where he put Troy on that play to pick that off." Well, hell, I had Troy on the end who was catching the ball, who lined up in the backfield to max protect. And Troy, we talked about if your guy that I put you on in this coverage isn't doing much, look at the quarterback's eyes and see who you can help. Well, Troy, he looked and he was in the backfield blocking. He just shot over there and picked off a slant to Mason, who was open. They're going to make a first down.
Mm-hmm.
He picked it off, and then what he did the rest of the time. So that was another time that my players made me look pretty smart.
Coach, I got another sequence. Talk about the James Harrison interception in the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's a good one. We all knew they had to throw the ball because there wasn't any time left.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a thing in poker. I used to play a lot of poker, and then you try to figure out what the other guy's doing, and that's what coaches do when they're calling defense and they're calling offensive plays, and you're trying the defense to stop them. You're trying to figure out what the other guy going to be calling. It's kind of a mental game, and I knew that it was going to be a pass, and I said, well, they'll think I'm going to blitz here because I always blitz. And I said, maybe that would be stupid since they know I'm going to blitz. I said, well, no, wait a minute now. Let me go once removed from a stupidity and not blitz. And I said, oh, no, that would be even dumber. I said, so I'm just going to go ahead and blitz everybody I got. And if they hit us, it's going to have to be quick. So I did blitz, and Harrison, what he did, all he was doing was occupy because it's an overload blitz. Somebody's going to come free, but everybody's man-to-man protection on that play. And Harrison said, well, I know they're going to throw the ball, and I know I'm not going to get through there. There's no way they're not going to have a blocker for me, so I'm going to grab the guy that's on me, and then I'm going to see who I can help. And what he did was occupy the tackle, drop back, and Warner never saw him. And he threw the ball. So Harrison won that. That was the greatest defensive play I've ever seen. It was a 102-yard run, but he ran 165 yards weaving back and forth. And every man on that field got a block except Harrison, who had the ball under his arm, and some guys got 2 and 3 blocks on the play. And so he just barely flopped into the end zone, if you remember. And it was like 100 on the field. And if he wasn't the most conditioned guy on the team, he would have never come out in that second half to play. And he played a great second half, but he could not breathe when he hit the ground down there. So after he finally got his breath back, that was the last play of the half. Then Super Bowls. Halftime is forever anyhow, and you gotta pace yourself in there because you got more time to do stuff. And I finally got over to James. I said, James, that was a great play, man. He said, what were you doing? He said, well, Coach, you always tell us to know the game situation, and you always tell us to think about the situation, the place on the field. And he said, I knew they were going to pass, and I knew they were going to not let me rush free. He said, so I grabbed my guy, and I dropped back and intercepted, and I ran 102 yards for a touchdown. I said, good thinking, James.
Coach, I'm curious. You go from Bill Cowher to Mike Tomlin. Tomlin's 34 years old when he becomes the head coach. What was that like for you, and was there any generational gap? You seem to relate with your players really well. I'm sure there was, but what was it like having a 34-year-old head coach come in?
Well, when Coach Cowher came to Pittsburgh, that was the first staff that I was on in Pittsburgh. He was probably the youngest coach in the league at that time. So he'd been with Marty Schottenheimer as the defensive coordinator, I think. And then he got the head job at Pittsburgh, and I was on his first staff. So I was used to working with guys that were actually younger than me. And Coach Tomlin came in, and he was both men were good to work for. They're great coaches, and they're I think the best thing that both of them do was relate to the team in situations of the season. There's ups and downs in all of our lives, but if you're a professional football player or coach, there's a bunch of ups and downs in every day you're going through. And the guys that can handle that and keep everybody focused and moving ahead and making the team better every day, and not making the team treading water or actually sliding back on the pole. And it was easy for me because both of those guys were my boss. And you, like I say, if you're going to have a team family atmosphere, you got to have a structure. And one guy's got to be. I used to tell the players, I say, listen, you're going to listen to me. And you're going to do what I tell you because I'm speaking for all of us, and I'm the voice of this defense. And what I say is what you're going to do, not because of what I say is necessarily absolutely the gospel. It's because I'm speaking and representing everybody in this room. And I had. It's really remarkable now. I'm still going, but I actually was coaching, running the meetings, calling the signals, everything at 80 years old. And when I got Cam would have been 21 years old, and I was already 50 years older than him. But one thing that I found about players are like humans. If you're helping them, if you're making them better, they're going to listen to you. And I tried to make sure that they understood that my sole purpose for coaching was to make them better. And that's the way that I conducted myself my whole career. And most of the time it worked out pretty good.
Coach, I remember one time we had lost like a big game, and you came in and you told everybody there's no prize at the bottom of that bottle.
Oh, yeah.
What was the thinking behind that?
Well, I've actually had 2 or 3 families. This is after they left me. Say that I turned their lives around. The young men were drinking way too much. And I always talked about all things in moderation, no excess. You don't need to drink the whole daggum bar up to show that you're a big, tough guy or something like that. All that's going to do is get you closer to meeting your maker. And we want to get there to meet him, but we want to postpone that date as long as we can.
Yes, sir.
And that's when I said, don't drink that bottle like there's a prize down in the bottom of it. And that was a standard, one of my things, a way of saying all things in moderation. And it helps, in my opinion. Don't get too happy when you have a good game. Just focus on the next play and know that how hard you work to get yourself in that position, to have the athletic ability and the strength to make that play, and make sure that you keep building on that and that it doesn't fall into the corner. And now pretty soon they're making their plays on you.
Coach, in 2005, you guys had a run that was pretty special. You guys were the wild card seed. What did you tell? Yeah. Would you tell the guys to get them going? Because I think they had lost like 3 straight and then went on a run. What was the message?
Yeah, I think that that was the first team, I think, that came from that 6th qualifying position for the playoffs to win it. And but I really didn't worry about our capability of being able to go all the way that year, because we lost Ben, I think, 3 or 4 games in that year. We were right in the middle of our losing streak in there. We had several injuries of guys that were important to our production that just couldn't play. And we were getting better, and we were getting guys healthy, and they were coming back. And to even qualify that year, I forget how many straight games we had to win at the end of the year to get in there. And that was a year that the guys all came in. We were playing the last game at home against Detroit. and we had to win it to solidify our position in the playoffs even. And they all came in with my jersey on, with LeBeau 44, and hung it from the lockers all around. And I came in getting ready for the game, and I looked at that whole locker room, the Steeler dressing room. It had 44 LeBeau with the Detroit line, and it was overwhelming. So I once I got my breath and got into my own locker room, I come back out and I said, "Get all the defense over here, all of them." And I brought him over. I said, "Guys," I said, "this is a tremendous, tremendous honor." I said, "I am so, so honored that you guys would do this. Now, let me tell you something. We damn well better win this football." But that team was not a 6 qualifying team. Mm-hmm. We just got our strength going good. What I remember about that year, and this is a great human nature story, we had played Indianapolis in the regular season a few weeks before we started getting our guys back. They thumped us. We didn't play well. They had a hell of a team with a great quarterback. They thumped us. And of course, we're all working a little extra hard getting ready for that playoff game. Because we went on the road 4 straight games. We counting the Super Bowl being on the road. And much like our Buckeyes did this year.
Oh, stop. Move on. Get out of here.
First ones to
Get out of here.
So we went over there to Indianapolis, and, teams come out on the field and you're stretching and we're loosening up. And I rarely do I even pay any attention to anybody other than my guys. But I just noticed, because Indy had just drubbed us. Not too many weeks before, I said, "Boy, if I've ever seen a team that is ripe for the picking, these guys are it," because they thought they were going to do the same thing again. Mm-hmm. And it did work out. I think the opening kickoff, Ben took our guys right down and scored. Mm-hmm. We went 3 and out. And the next series, Ben took them right down, and we got a field goal. And by that time, Indianapolis said, "Ooh," And I think we sacked Peyton. I forget how many times, 7 or 8 times in that game. Man, our guys were fantastic, and it was just the difference in our team from when we played them in that regular season to where we were in the playoffs. So, to me, I didn't tell them anything. We just got our team back, and those guys got to show the spirit and the connected cohesiveness that they had when they had everything, their whole team, particularly their quarterback. I might add, Ben got well at the end of that year too.
What was it like having Ben as a coach?
You felt like you were never out of the game. And if if we had 2 or 3 bad series where they moved the ball and scored on us, either field goal or touchdown. And I didn't do a whole lot of sideline talking to the guys, but if we were not performing to a level that I'm used to seeing us play at, I mean, people are going to make plays on you. This is the NFL. Mm-hmm. But if I didn't like what I was seeing, that's the only times I would call them together. So, because I wanted to know, hey, coach, he don't do this very often. He's got something to say. Let's listen to him. I didn't want to be just talking to hear my head rattle. But I always felt very confident telling him that, Ben's going to keep us in this game. We got to get our ass in gear and get these people stopped. Well, how are we going to do that? We're going to stop them one play at a time. The first thing we got to do is get their punter on the field. And we got to execute one snap at a time. And that was as close to a lecture to our guys, and I didn't have to use it very often. But when you have a quarterback like Ben, he was another guy. I got to watch him play at Miami. I was coaching in Cincinnati, and it was when ESPN started showing all the games, the MAC games on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So I saw almost his whole season. I saw him play in, 22 degrees, 0 degrees, and he's out there throwing the ball around like it's summer. And I said, this guy's special. So I knew he was, and just like I knew you were, Cam, to be totally honest with you.
Coach, I want to go back to that playoff game. Will you take me to what your initial thoughts were when Jerome Bettis fumbled that ball at the goal line?
Couldn't believe it, except I thought we'd been stopping them all day and playing good, and I had utmost respect. Peyton Manning's one of the greatest quarterbacks that ever played. But our guys had been doing a really good job against their offense, which was great that day. And I thought we had a good chance of getting them stopped. But one thing that really made me feel good about that play, we were all celebrating on the sideline because we had just sacked Peyton 3 straight times. Mm-hmm. And I think the ball was on the Indianapolis 3-yard line, and it was fourth down. It was 4th down and 20, and they couldn't punt because there wasn't enough time left in the game. They had to go for it. Mm-hmm. I said, "Well, man, I'm one to tell my guys never say it's over." I said, "But we get this 4th down stop, it's going to be over." And we sacked him, and it was down on the 3-yard line. Well, guys were throwing their helmets in the air, going crazy. No, I'm running up and down the sideline saying, "No, get over here on the bench where you're supposed to be." I said, "You never know what's going to happen." And right then, Bettis never fumbled, incidentally. Never. So you never say never, because there he went off tackle, and he fumbled it. And an interesting side story, sometimes things are just meant to be. The guy that picked that ball up, I've seen that play 100 times. It always scores a touchdown for the defense because there's nobody from the offense over there that can get to the guy. Mm-hmm. Well, the guy that picked it up, he took off. He's a DB. And Ben, somehow, I don't know how Ben to this day got him on the ground. It was about midfield, but Ben made the tackle. I mean, quarterbacks, they don't get too many tackling practice drills, but Ben got him on the ground. Well, come to read, I didn't even know it, but it was, I don't know, a couple of weeks later, that guy, his girlfriend had stabbed him in the leg the night before the game, man. I said, well, thank you, Lord. Sometimes things just break out.
I was wondering if you knew that story. I was wondering if you knew.
Yeah. Oh, I know a lot of stories, man. Sometimes I don't remember them. But I tell you, an addendum to that, I was trying to get my guys because you never know what's going to happen in the game. And when I saw that guy go, I said, "Oh, Christ, he's going to score." And Ben got him on the ground. Well, I turned right around to get my guys who were all over. We all hugging and dancing and everything. I said, "Hey, grab your helmet, get you," and I'm trying to get a hold of everybody, trying to say, "Hey, we were 3 points ahead. I figured we'll get them into overtime. We'll beat them. We'll win it." So I was chasing up and down, and I looked up, and I was 30 yards on the field, man. I was on midfield and I was Farrier was our signal caller, and Foote was kind of our lawyer. He was always chatting, getting everybody going. So I was trying to get a hold of both of those guys because I knew they'd get the message to everybody. And I looked at how they were looking at me, and they were like incredulous, and they said, "Coach," I said, "what the hell are you doing out here? You're on the field." I said, "Well, I'm just telling you about we can stop these guys." He said, "Give us a defense and get off this field. We're going to stop them." And I felt that gave me such a sense of security when my players are telling me, "Get off the field, give us a defense. We're going to stop them." And they did. And Bryant McFadden made 2 straight, and he was a very, very young player, And that's when I knew we had the real thing in that rookie too. So that was a great game. So there's a couple stories about that.
Appreciate it, Coach. Coach, I heard you were an actor at one time.
If you're talking to me, I was an actor.
No, I heard you were a double for Michael Caine.
Stunt double for Michael Caine, and Too Late the Hero was the name of the movie. So we were all English detachment in World War II coast watchers, and they would gather movement of the Japanese fleet and radio it back so everybody knew what the Japanese were doing with the Pacific Fleet. And everybody was English except Cliff Robertson was in it, and my buddy Pat Studstill, who played wide receiver for us. We knew Eddie Metter, who was a defensive back for the Rams, and Eddie Metter knew Bob Aldrich, who had directed that movie. So they wanted to get athletes to be the stunt doubles because there was a big run going across a rice paddy field. You had to run about 75, 80 yards with zigzagging, and we were doing it in the Philippine jungles where it was 120 every day. So they knew that the normal stunt man would have one run, and then they reload the cameras and blow up all the bullets again, and then they wouldn't be able to do but one a day. So they got athletes who were in shape, and we could run as many as they wanted to run all day. So that's how I got in there. But I said, you're in the jungle. We were on location. So that's my story. I think there were 3 girls in the whole thing. You know, you think Hollywood, beautiful women and everything. One was a script girl, and 2, I don't know what the other 2 did. And there was like 75 or 80 guys for the 3 girls. You know, I said, well, that figures. I'm in a movie and there's no women in it.
Coach, why I asked? Because I was like, who would play you in a movie about you? Who would you want that?
There wouldn't be I think it would be more like a Laurel and Hardy type movie. If you're going with me. I said somebody asked me that question, Kim. It was not too long ago, and I was with my wife. And I said, I think Paul Newman would be perfect. And she started laughing. She said, what are you talking about? Newman was good looking, man. So no, there's only one me, thank the Lord.
Coach, I want to switch gears real quick. You've always done the Christmas Eve tradition of reciting "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." Where did that all start? And how has it caught on since then?
Well, I don't know. The amazing thing is I'll see players that I haven't seen for years and years and years, and they'll say, are you still doing the night before Christmas, Coach? They don't ask me how I'm feeling and how's my health and none of that. But it impacted with the players. Cam, I grew up in a close-knit family like yours, and it was our people had been through depression and 2 world wars, and nobody had anything, and they were just used to working together, and we had nothing. We didn't know it because no one in town had anything. Nobody had any. Everything went to the troops, or everybody was poor because of the depression. There wasn't anything to be had, and except for Christmas, and the senior, we were more of a matriarch, really. The women kind of ran the family, and they budgeted through the whole year for Christmas. And you would have thought we were the Rockefellers when Christmas hit. Presents under the tree, and we're eating turkey and ham. And it was such a big season of the year for our family. Mm-hmm. And I wanted the women to know somehow, when I got old enough to reflect back on my upbringing, that I got it, how important Christmas and sharing and all those thoughts of Christianity are And I said, well, what can I do to let them know that I got the message from them? I said, I know what I'll do. I'll learn the night before Christmas, the poem. Well, that was before I realized how many verses there were to that thing. But I sat down when you're a parent, as you know, you got a lot of toys to put together on Christmas Eve. And putting together the toys, I started learning the poem. And it actually took me 2 Christmases to learn the darn thing.
Wow.
But once I did, I thought, well, I did this for my family. And I gathered them all around and I recited it. And after coaching, I thought, well, my extended family are my players. I said, I'm going to do it for my players. And I started doing it for the players. And the way it caught on in Pittsburgh, I did it for the defense in Pittsburgh. And about 2 days later, Coach Cowher said, hey, I hear you saying the poems in the meeting room. I said, yeah, I did the night before Christmas. He said, well, why didn't you do it for the whole team? I said, well, I thought that might be your call, Coach, not mine. Yeah, he said, I want you to do it for the whole team. So that's what we did, and that's how it caught on.
Man, Coach, I love that. I've seen guys in tears just because of how beautiful you've done it.
Well, you can see that it's meaningful to me, and it's because of my family and my mother more than anything.
Coach, I want to play a game with you. We played it with Cam a few weeks ago. I said, Cam, name your starting 11 all-time on defense using Steelers players. Can you do this with Steelers you coached? Name me the 11 guys you'd start on a defense, any guy you coached in Pittsburgh.
I already told you I'm not going to do that.
Well, I didn't see Heyward. Give me your ultimate defense. Can you give me your line, your linebackers? And I know it's tough, but
I'll tell you the only way I can answer that question. I don't have one because how do you can't take people from one environment, one group of teams to another. I mean, each guy, I love them all. I asked them to give me everything they had, and I never had a defense in Pittsburgh that didn't give me everything they had. So what more can you ask as a coach from a player? But the 2008 defense, statistically, they're not going to be equal. You say never, never, never. And maybe somebody will someday. But even like whoever you want to pick from last year, I still check the stats just to see if it's an accurate statement. And there was no comparison last year. And there were some great defenses let go on last year. Nobody came close to the numbers that 08. I just don't think anybody's going to do it anymore. And they led. I had 11 categories that I thought were crucial to making a successful defensive game. That's all I was trying to do, was give my guys a goal that was attainable, that meant something if they made it. And out of those 11 categories, points, yards, fumbles, pressures, sacks, whatever, they were first in the league in 9 out of the 11. It's just all in that book I wrote about them. That was the reason for writing the book, is how productive that group of men were. And everybody on that team had to be productive because we had Casey Hampton missed 5 or 6 games, and you can go on and on. And they all stepped in, and nobody could do anything against them. So as far as picking out individuals, when you're in as complicated a team game as football is, 11 guys, you're never looking at one guy. You're not. It's us.
Who's the most underrated player from that 2008 defense?
Well, I'd say the most underrated guys were the guys that didn't, quote, hit the starting lineup, who every one of them, when they went in the game, played great. And there's no way you can put those kind of numbers up and have a weak spot in your defense, including depth. And we had it all. But those guys did, the headline makers were Harrison and Polamalu and Ferrier and, Casey Hampton, but there was no weak spot. underrated players of the starters, probably Aaron Smith and Brett Kiesel.
Mm.
They were never blocked. Never blocked. And Casey, you couldn't hardly block him. Centers got to where they were just sprinting. Snap the ball and sprint to the sideline to try to get him cut off. So I want to get a technique for you called tough. And when that center takes a step, you can go to back door on him, and I'll make sure that Foot and Ferrier know that you're not going to get to the onside A. You're going to get the backside A and penetrate, and they're going to deepen and go get the onside stuff on flow over there. And I'd say, now look, I'm not in the game, so I'm looking, but I don't always see. You're going to have to help me, Casey. Tell me when we can use this tough, because you remember a couple games that you'd see Casey, he'd be in the middle of the backfield and hit the guy before you hardly even get the ball. Well, that was tough. And he was free to do that because the backers could compensate for him. Mm-hmm. So Casey was a man of few words. And I said, hey, you got to tell me on the sideline, when you think it's time for tough and that center's taking off on you. So we'd be sitting over about the middle of the second quarter, and Casey would just come walking by me, and he'd have his water jug in his right hand. He'd say, time for a little tough, Coach. Time for a little tough. So I started feeding him some tough.
All right, Coach, we like to finish here in a game. It's called This or That. I'm going to give you two things. You pick one or the other, okay?
Yeah.
All right, Johnny Unitas or Bart Starr?
Peyton Manning.
Oh, that's the next one. Peyton Manning or Tom Brady?
You can't deny what Brady's accomplished. The only thing that I say about the old quarterbacks, even going back to guys like Van Brocklin and those guys, there were only 12 teams in the league. They had 2 quarterbacks is all they had. So there were only 24 guys in the world that were making a living throwing the football. Those damn guys could throw the football, I'm telling you. They were wonderful, wonderful passers. Because the competition for the job was so acute. But I think when they're talking about quarterbacks, just look at the record. I mean, they have support by great players, but all the great quarterbacks won. They won, and all those guys deserve that. When you're picking the best doesn't exist. Let's face it.
All right, this one I think I know the answer to. 2005 defense, 2008 defense.
They were both great defenses. Statistically, I don't think the 2008 defense is going to be matched.
Yeah, Greg Lloyd or James Harrison?
I wouldn't want to be in a war against either one of them. Put it that way. Guys would actually turn around and go the other way from Lloyd. And I've never seen James Harrison take a backward step from anybody in any situation. And he used to every now and then warn everybody on the practice field, all right, next play, boys. Next play. And things kind of simmered down from there on in.
Jack Lambert or Jack Ham?
I think Lambert, from a standpoint of how the game of football is played and the things you have to be able to do to be successful in it, Lambert was a perfect example of a guy who's going to give you everything he's got, never going to step backward, always going to be a team guy.
Rod Woodson or Mel Blount?
Ooh, man. I got to go with Rod only because I coached him. And Mel Blount changed the game with the way he could shut down receivers. And Rod Woodson is one of the best athletes in any sport. He was an Olympic hurdler. He was a world champion track guy. I mean, he was amazing.
Wow.
And these are other guys that made me look smart. So,
all right, this is for you. Your playing career or your coaching career?
And it's easy. It's more fun to do, man.
That's what I told you. I told you, Cam.
I thought you were going to say
that.
coaching, coach.
It's more fun to do. Let me tell you something, Cam. When you're playing, you can physically do something about it. But when your guys are just a little bit off, all you can do is coach and show and talk. You cannot physically get out there and help them. And now, along with that comes the risk that you might hurt them more. But I have to say, in all seriousness, I came from a very small town, and we had 51 in our graduation class. We had just enough people, like 24 or 5 on the football team to practice. We had to put dummies out there most of the time to practice. And Ohio State was 25 miles from my hometown, and I'd go to the stadium. My uncle would take us once a year to a game, and there'd be 100,000 people in the stands. And I said, man, how do people ever get good enough to play in an environment like this? And looking back, I was lucky enough to be a real good high school player and good enough to play for Woody Hayes. I played 14 years in the NFL. So my own personal athletic accomplishment.
That's pretty special.
The fact that I was lucky enough to get, seriously now, I know I joke a lot about you, Ken, but it's people like you that make coaches great. And I was lucky enough to get a significant amount of players like Cam Heyward, who not only can play, but they care about the people around them, and they will they'll invest themselves in the good of all. And yeah, like the quote from Big Daddy Lipscomb. Do you remember? You know Gene Lipscomb? You won't know him. Cam. You should look up him. He was the first really big defensive end. I think he played for Baltimore. He was like 6'7", man. He was fantastic, but what a character. So they were interviewing him one time after the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl used to be a real game. We actually played football because our salaries weren't quite what y'all making, and the winning team got $2,000 more than the losing team. Well, guys, in those days when they were playing for $5,000 for the year, we'd fight and kill for $2,000. Man, it was a hell of a game. So they were talking to Big Daddy, and they said, Big Daddy, they're getting astronauts now that are soaring to the moon. Said, what do you think of that? He said, I'd love to be an astronaut. That's my goal in life. I want to be an astronaut. He said, well, what would you do if you were an astronaut? He said, I'd get in that rocket. I'd shoot up to the moon. I'd get out on the moon. I'd grab the United States of America flag. I'd walk around and I'd plant it on the surface of the moon. And I'd claim it for the United States of America. And I'd get a little glory for Big Daddy, too. So that's I like playing. I love to play.
All right, my last one. Three Rivers or Heinz Field?
It's not Heinz Field anymore.
Well, it isn't. I figured Acrisure would not hit as much. So
let me tell you something. I refuse to call it anything but Heinz Field.
Okay, good.
To me, that was just an office. They were just another place to change my clothes and go out there and play and coach football.
Fair enough.
All the one era stadiums there was for about 10 years when they're in all of them recycled now, but they were very similar architecturally. And you should have seen the places that we played in. They were all baseball stadiums. Mm-hmm. They couldn't even get a football field in some of them. And because baseball was here first, and they built the stadiums, and we went out and played in them, and they were all baseball fields with pitcher's mounds on them and different. Go ahead.
That's all for me, Cam.
Thank God.
Coach, I got to say thank you, though. Spending some time with you. I know I'm just speaking for myself, but I think from all of us, we love you, man. We're always happy to see you, always thankful to have these moments with you. A lot of our careers wouldn't be the way it is without you. And I just want you to know that we love you so much, Coach. Thank you so much for coming on. And, we got to get together more often.
Let me tell you something, Cam. When we came into Pittsburgh, when I wasn't with Pittsburgh, and it broke my heart not to be with you, you came to see me. And players like yourself are the reason that I chose coaching for a profession. And all that I wanted out of my work, out of my profession, was to have my players feel that way about me. So I cannot tell you how grateful I am for people like yourself and most of the guys that we have mentioned today. What a wonderful life I've had, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And all I ever wanted to be was treated like people like yourself can treat me. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Coach. Love you, man.
You know the feeling is mutual, big fella.
All right, that's our episode. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop a follow and a rating wherever you stream your podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.